What does storytelling mean to you?
Find myself, I can express myself through these things. The pleasure of making a film. And there nobody said anything, I say, wow, Dan, that's wonderful, you made this little film. I felt more comfortable there than at home.
When did the actual journey of a filmmaker start?
Can I make a documentary about this house? So he said to me, you're studying 2-3 months, you already know how to make a film? I said, yes.
Whether it's good, bad, ugly, gives you a theme.
I think they liked me. I'm not saying it's not painful, you want people to love you.
I want to get started on the journey.
My attitude is that I'm not trying to make a masterpiece. I'm just going to work. Masterpieces don't come out when you intend to make them. So, you make a film, you don't know what will come out.
Becoming a warrior of sorts.
The pleasure of making a film.
What are the significant differences that you've observed?
Films that never see the light of day. All the time I'm saying, wow, that would make a great film. Sometimes I'm not nice to some people and only just thinking about the future. Otherwise, it would not be done. Who says, it breathes down your neck and says, listen, you have to take this actress because last night, happened.
What are the main things you need to figure out?
Comes and said, Dan, come shoot from here. It's a great shot, and so on. I know I never shoot from there.
When you're working with low budgets,
believe in yourself, you can do it. A lot of people are going to lose their jobs because of AI. Now you cannot tell if somebody is really talented or not. Not use him as a director. AI will direct it and he won't have a job. Robot or this monster could become a monster and probably destroy.
How do you build relationships in your personal life?
A dark side in me, maybe it's light, some people see it as dark.
Today on the Creativity Dialogues, I'm joined by Dan Wolman, Israeli filmmaker, director, actor, and producer, whose career spans over 5 decades of cinema, theater, and television across Israel and internationally. Known for his quiet integrity and refusal to simplify complex realities, Dan's work explores moral ambiguity, exile, memory, and the human cost of history, always choosing depth over spectacle. In this episode, we go beyond filmography to speak about creativity as conscience, aging as an artist, and living between worlds, doubts and intuition, and what it means to remain creatively alive across a lifetime of work. This is not just a conversation about cinema, but about the inner world of a filmmaker who listens deeply to the world. Welcome to the Creativity Dialogues. Welcome, Dan. It's such a pleasure and honor to have you on today.
Thank you.
Let's begin with what this whole journey is all about. What does storytelling mean to you?
I'll tell you how it began for me. Obviously it started with reading a lot of stories. But then I think at the age of 15, 16, I was a counselor at the Scouts. And I had a group of about 10, 15 boys. And I think they liked me among the counselors because they knew that every Wednesday in the afternoon we would meet after their school and I would tell them a short story. So, it started by me telling O. Henry, Edgar Allan Poe, stories. And then at a certain point, I said, okay, Wednesday is coming and I don't have a story. I have to invent something. So, and I think that what was interesting was the fact that among the children, I'm speaking about Jerusalem because I was born in Jerusalem, there were 2 children who were blind. So, you have the group of kids, and then you had 2 blind children, you have to tell them a story. And for some of them, the part of the sound was very important, the screeching of the door, the cat. And so for me, it was like the beginning of a movie, a short story with these things in the background. And I think that was the beginning. And, obviously after that, I knew that somewhere it was already steering in the direction of cinema.
So you grew up in Israel. What
Right.
was your growing up journey like? What were your formative years like?
Okay. It's very unusual, not typical, because my my parents came from. My father came from Palestine. Was, after high school, he went to study medicine in Italy, and I'm speaking about the beginning of the 30s. At that time, Mussolini was the dictator. Was ruling in Italy. And so my father came from Palestine to study medicine, and my mother fled from Germany to Italy because my mother, was had a Jewish mother, so she was Jewish. They fell in love, and he brought her to Jerusalem. And, my father, in order to fight the Germans, in order to fight the Nazis, he joined the British Army in 1940. And my father then there was a very famous general called Wingate, and General Ord Wingate he took a group of Israeli doctors at that time to fight in Ethiopia, because Churchill put Ord Wingate, the general, in charge of the battle against the Italians. The Italians caught Ethiopia. And my father was a young doctor, 26-year-old doctor. After getting married to my mother, and I was there already as a baby in Jerusalem, and my father was the emperor's doctor, Haile Selassie's doctor, private doctor. After Ethiopia, after Addis Ababa, the capital of Ethiopia, was captured back from the Italians, my mother was allowed to bring me as a child to Africa. And I lived in Africa, in Menelik Hospital in Ethiopia for 3.5 years. I was there. And in 1945, we came back to Israel. It was not Israel at the time. It was called Palestine. It was still, like India, it was a British, under British mandate. And if India, got its independence in 1947, we got it in 1948, and the British were out already. So I'm saying, so these were my beginning of my life was there in Africa. I could speak Amharic, the language of the Ethiopians. My father used to say better than my Hebrew today. And then I came back. I studied at high school in Israel. Elementary school, high school in Jerusalem. Then I went to the army for 2.5 years. And then I went...
Did the army training have a sort of impact on you? How was it different? Because I can only imagine that somebody who's had a normal kind of a life, suddenly when the army, how does it shake you up?
First of all, nothing is normal in me, okay? So I'm saying that nothing was normal, and definitely the army, we have a special unit in the army which is like you train in the beginning like other soldiers, but the rest of the time it's called the Israeli Nachal. You go to a village or you go to a kibbutz, one of these settlements, and you actually work in agriculture.
Oh.
And then, but then some go to become paratroopers, etc.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, obviously, it's a very important period in a man's life where you're 18 years old and you're there with a group. And immediately already there, I was a trend in the direction of what we call culture. In other words, like you knew that every Friday there was some sort of a party, and there was, let's say, a little play being put on or something like that, or something with singing. And I would be one of the few, 2-3 people who were in charge of culture in that thing. And but, obviously, I was thinking all the time when I was in the army about the future, what will happen to me. So, then cinema became very, I said, okay, I'm going to study film.
So you took that decision while you were at the army, that it started to become a little more clear for you?
Yes, it was during the army. During the army, I decided, I remember we were working in a cotton fields, we were picking cottons, and somebody said to me, what are you going to do? And he was going to become a dentist. And I said, I'm going to become a film director. And it was exactly the opposite of my personality. I was a very shy person. If you would touch me, I would sweat. I was very uncomfortable, with other people. I was very shy. I couldn't speak the way I speak today. And really, it was like people say, he would never make a director because he cannot function with other people. But then, I somehow overcame my shyness. And
But what brought this clarity that I think I should, were you like an avid film watcher? Did you watch a lot of movies? What brought you to that clarity?
there was, an age. First of all, like everybody, I saw, films from very young age. I think maybe again 12, 13. Some people here, obviously, and I see my, children see it from and television and so on. At that time, no television, and but I remember 12, 13 were my first films. But when I was 15, 16, I saw the film. I saw some Italian films, and I'm speaking about Miracle in Milan by De Sica. And that film, really, I couldn't speak for 3 days after I saw the film. It had so much impact on me. And suddenly that world, because, again, I'm interested in music and painting and, again, storytelling and, with everything that, all the art factors, all of them, I was interested in them, and I felt that, whichever field I'm going to be at, I'm going to find myself in it. I'm not a feeling that I'll be good at it, but that I'll find myself. I can express myself through these things.
So what were the next steps? Once you said, okay, I want to do this.
Yes.
But after that begins the whole kind of what was the plan?
Yeah. There is something, and again, I'm jumping to a little thing, but I think in The Idiot by Dostoevsky, there is something where there is somebody who is in a party, and he's very shy, and he feels that everybody is looking at him, and then when he walks like a soldier. I mean, there's something which is a bit so, or...
Out of character.
Yes. Yeah. I think also there's this film, there's also an Italian film. I'm not going to go into it, but there is a scene where there's somebody who is very shy, and there is a woman there, with a, very big breast, and he's looking at her, and he's attracted, and he's so shy, and he doesn't know, and then he takes his hand and he hits her, Instead, it comes out something which is completely not what, what you'd believe that he'd do. It's something completely, like that. And I think there was something like that in me, which is that I was like that. And suddenly the move, so I thought, okay, I'm going to go to America and to study cinema.
Why America?
And my father, I wrote to Japan, I think it was France, England and America. And I got some positive answers. But in America, I found out from a friend of my father that there you can really change your status in the summer and you'd be able to work, because I knew my parents were not rich and that I'd have to work as a waiter or something, and that's what I did later on. But I didn't have money, so there was something daring in that, and I think that is something that is always there, which is completely out of character. Okay, and so I'm saying after that thing, not similar to other people who were around me, I wrote letters, I got responses, and then I found out that I can go to the States. My parents had friends there, and 2 friends, and there was a woman who agreed that I'll stay there for a month or 2 months, and I came and I stayed at her house, and I was studying, and again I studied in the evening because I couldn't. I needed to work, some work. So I started working, and I remember that when I came, the first day that I came to City College, the Film Institute of City College, I climbed up the steps, and there was on the billboard there was a sign, and it said that there is a competition for 3-minute films. So I remember that I said to myself, can I make a good 3-minute film? Can you move someone with a 3-minute film the way a 3-minute song can move people? And, so then suddenly my thinking was, can I make something 3 minutes and move people in cinema, which was my first attempt. And then I made, a few films, and some of them opened the doors for me. I made one little film and it got a lot of prizes. And again, I'm speaking about, before you were born, 1965. I made a film also that won a lot of prizes, and I think it was something like I got a prize of $6,000, which for that
Yeah.
at that time it was a lot of money, and it helped me pay for a lot of things that I was, again teaching and
I was wondering
living.
that when somebody comes from Israel to
Yeah.
a certain Western culture,
Yes.
how did you fit in? Because there must have been challenges at every level
Yeah.
of how to adjust, perhaps from the language, from the attitudes. So, from feeling like
Yeah.
an outsider, how do you feel comfortable enough to
Okay.
go there and to start actually making movies, to catch opportunities that this might be good?
It's exactly the opposite in the sense, no, what I'm saying, the opposite in the sense that in Israel, I felt uncomfortable, because it's like a village. Everybody knows you and you say, he's this and so on. And he got only, 7+ in math or something like that.
Judgments.
And here I'm coming to a place, nobody knows me. I'm starting from zero and I have to prove myself. So I felt comfortable, nobody, and again, probably there is something regarding privacy that for me was very important. So here, I felt like, I'll tell you, when I came back from studying cinema and I came back to Israel and I was walking with a friend in the streets of Tel Aviv, and I met a woman and, and she said, what you're going to do? I said, I'm going to make a film. And she said to me, you finished school and you think you can already make a film? And so on. And then I said, what is your film about? And I said, it's going to be about an old age home and so on. And she said, that's going to be your last film if you make about old people. No, what I'm saying is, people in my country, they dare tell you what they think, without, and it's immediately, your heart cringes and you say, it discourages you. And there, nobody said anything, I say, wow, Dan, that's wonderful, you made this little film and so on. So I felt more comfortable there than at home.
And once you completed your filmmaking course, when did the actual journey of a filmmaker start? Did you assist people, or did you decide that I want to get started on the journey?
Look, because you are in a film school, okay, so immediately from the beginning, immediately there is that thing that at the end of the, like let's say semester, you're going to have you find 2-3 people in your class, make a little film. And I try to work as always on the side, like we were living at the International House. I was living at a place called International House, which was built by Rockefeller for foreign students. And that we were living there, a third were foreigners, the others were Americans together. And I remember that after 2-3 months, I went to the president of International House and I said to him, listen, I'm studying cinema and so on, and you have this wonderful house here and people don't know about it. Can I make a documentary about this house? So he said to me, you're studying 2-3 months, you already know how to make a film? I said, yes. So again, there was this daring,
Yes.
Again, I'm not saying it was justified, but there was this thing. I don't think anybody else had the
courage
guts.
or the guts to ask. This is so important. A lot of people just quickly get into their comfort zone that, okay, I wanted to get into film school. I've made it here now.
Yeah.
Now let me relax. I'm learning. But to have that daring, the guts, to quickly think, can I do this?
Yes.
How can I just, progress? I think that's a very interesting and very required quality with those who really want to stay for the long run. And I think you were exhibiting that from the beginning. Mm-hmm. Now, when you started your initial movies,
Yes.
you decided to make films on older people, the elderly.
Yeah.
Now, as a young man, why would you think of making films on the old? And how did you even think that you would know about them, or what's the curiosity, or why did you choose that path?
Look, I'm going to say something that I've never said before, and I hope you can always edit it out. But I think first of all, it was like because of sexual stories in my childhood. From the age of 12, 13, I was very much involved in these businesses. And so as I grew up, it was
with older women?
Yes.
Yeah. So
not women and men.
women and men.
Okay. I'm saying it was, and there were of both kinds, but there was something about me probably, and I cannot say it's just the world did evil things to me. I was a part of it. It's not like that. But
were there any scars from those times?
Yeah, it's. I'm speaking about it because that's what I'm going to be talking about now. I'm saying that I think that, again, of course, there is the world, and at that time it was not something that people speak about. And again, there were my parents, and I never spoke to my parents about it at that time.
Yeah.
And but I'm saying, like, you have a boy in school, 13, 14 years old, and other people are studying and so on, and he cannot really study like the others because there are other things happening in his life. But what I'm saying is I felt very uncomfortable with people my age. So I'm saying that I think that my first films, and also this, there is something in me that is a bit outside the mainstream, also in the films that I'm making. And my first films dealing with old people were because I think I was there, I felt comfortable. It was the same way I felt comfortable in New York more than in Tel Aviv or in Jerusalem. I felt more comfortable with people who were older, and where I didn't have to perform, I didn't, there was that thing was not there.
Thank you so much for sharing this story, Dan, because I think that it can empower so many young people on how it is actually the very events that happen to you in your life that shape you and give you some kind of a theme, some kind of a topic in which you kind of have more perspective, whether it's good, bad, ugly, but it gives you a theme that you have actually experienced. And so a lot of people tend to avoid their own lives, either because they're ashamed, embarrassed, or they think, who would be interested? But when you engage in the right way, you actually make something out of it. So when did the themes from older people, what was the next kind of direction that captured your interest?
First of all, in order to survive, I immediately started to work outside. And outside meaning that there was school, but people were making films. They said, okay, can you come and help us? I remember one of my teachers at City College said, we're shooting a film. Can you come? We'll give you $5, I think, can you come on Sunday and join us? So it was, little things like that where I would, then, like people said, there is a porno being shot somewhere. Will you come and help, assist, something like that? And I said yes. And so immediately, I wanted to learn and do anything that was involved. And I'm saying that, like, when I started studying, and I studied only in the evening, also when I made my first film, it was done very low budget. And I remember, trying to raise money. So now you're writing a screenplay for your own country. So you have to shoot in your own country. And, you're finishing school, you don't have any money. And suddenly, at that time, we tried to raise $100,000. So I remember we were thinking, first of all, to approach people. I remember that we advertised in the newspaper. At that time, it was possible. And I said a young, dynamic group is going to Israel to shoot a feature, serious investors only, or something like that. And, we made some meetings, and some people were interested, people who were interested in Israel and culture, and Jewish culture, called up. And we managed to raise $25,000. And then I made one film that won a prize. And it was called the Kingsley Award Prize. And it was for Best Film at NYU in 1968. And I made a film called The Gospel, a short film. And there was this, at that time I thought she was an old woman. Again, now she's 14 years younger than me today. I'm 84. She was 70. And I thought, oh, this old woman. And she came to me and she gave me the prize. It was $750. And she said to me, when you make your first feature, tell me about it. Okay, I'll bring some friends. And So I had a story, and my story took place in an old age home, and it was about a young man with traits of an old man, really, who's working there, and he befriends an old woman. And there's a young woman coming to the old age home, and there is a triangle. And if you want, I'll tell you about it. But I came to this old lady's house. I told her the story. She said, I'm inviting 10 of my friends, and there were all these old ladies around the table. And she said, tell them the story. And we raised another $12,000 because each one of them gave $1,000. So I'm saying the way, it was, really, how do you say, one by one, it was step by step that we managed to raise a little money. And then I came home and we made this film, The Dreamer. Again, the story is all ups and downs because the film was a disaster in Israel. It failed. People hated it. And because again, it was a film about, it went to a theater where they were showing action films normally, or films, which were French films, which had a lot of tears in them. And there was my very strange film. And people were rolling bottles, usually when people drank juice or whatever it was, when they didn't like the film, they would roll down the aisles bottles. So it was that kind of a film.
Traumatic.
Yeah. And one of the critics misspelled my name, so instead of Dan Wolman, he said Dan Wolman, and they said, funny things also about the producers. And suddenly it was accepted to Cannes Film Festival in competition.
Wow, at the Cannes.
Yes. Oh. And that was, again, 1970. It was Israel's representative. And, it was among, films by the most famous directors. MASH won the big prize that year. Robert Altman's film. And then it played in New York at Carnegie Hall Cinema, and it was a big success. It played something like 3 months, more than Bonnie and Clyde. And suddenly, from nothing, suddenly I was there.
Yeah, not even nothing, but from negativity.
Yes,
from
right,
negative reviews.
Right.
To just go to acceptance at the highest level.
Right.
You know what, I'm wondering, how do you navigate these emotional lows and highs? Because as an artist, I feel perhaps that's what life is. But how do you keep your composure when all negativity, be it in the form of reviews or failures, and then when rewards come, when appreciation comes, how do you navigate between these phases?
Look, when I was younger, again, I'm still, and you get, the film doesn't succeed, there are bad reviews and so on. It's very painful. It's very hard to get up the next day and think about this. But there's something in me that, I always say, I can't stop, I have to go on. And always, and obviously now as an old man, I'm looking at it differently, and I think it's important to work. Okay, so I'm saying this is my attitude. My attitude is, that we don't have garbage. In cinema, you don't have garbage. Like you're a painter, you don't like a sketch, you throw it to the garbage. In cinema, even if you make a film and you yourself don't like it, there are backers. No, only backers, and they are potential. They want to get their investment back at least. And they'll make a profit and so on. And you say, okay, I don't like it, but I have to show it. I have to live with the film that I made. So I'm saying it's another work, and I'm glad that my attitude is that I'm not going to trying to make a masterpiece. I'm just going to work, do another work, because I think masterpieces don't come out when you intend to make them. So, you make a film, you don't know what will come out. You hope it'll be okay. But, conditions are like this. They change when you make films. Sometimes you get actors who hate each other. There are things, suddenly you have less money than you thought because there were promises by this that they would invest money and there's no money. There are all kinds of strange things that happen when you make a film. So you really, and sometimes, it clicks, like in a concert, where suddenly all the members of the orchestra are there and you get a good performance. But it's a lot of people that have to be okay in order for for it to work. So I'm saying that something happened again over the years. It's not that I'm not saying it's not painful. You want people to love you. You want important to be, But I think that now there is some sort of a distance, and I take it in proportion. And so, I'm saying I'm just going on. Maybe I'll.
Was there any level at any point
Yeah.
in this journey where you felt, when it was a particularly bad time, where you felt, I'm done with this, I don't want to continue? Did things ever get to that point where you felt that I don't want to continue? And then, if that did happen, how did you again re-engage?
I'm trying to, again, I'm saying there were bad times,
Yeah.
very bad
But
times
nothing
where I
enough
felt
to-
that where I felt that I disappointed people, and of course disappointed myself, or that people completely didn't, also sometimes you make a film, nobody pays attention to it, and then 10 years later or 15 years later they say, that was a very important film. And people say to me, like even yesterday, I met somebody here, and he said to me something about a film I made a long time ago, and I said, wow, he knows that film, it touched him. So I'm saying it's, it's something that there were bad times, but, there is something in me where I'm going on. I wanted to say something which I think is interesting, that, that... let's say there's some people who are working somewhere and there's always there a backing, like television is interested in them and so on. They are successful.
That's so interesting to hear, Dan. And how do you navigate especially the difficult times?
Look, in this life, there are some, there was very hard moments. And sometimes you make a film that nobody cares about, or it's you lose money, and so nobody will want to touch you, and then it's going to be very hard to raise money for your next film, and then or you got terrible reviews. People said you were not talented. So there's lots of things like that, and I think that there is something in me, and sometimes it's not one film. You make 2 films in a row. You say, you raise, your efforts, energy, and everything, and you succeed making another film, and again, it's a disaster. So I'm saying sometimes you have long periods, where you make films where nobody appreciates. So there are very, very difficult times. They say that they made once an experiment with 2 pigeons. One pigeon had, like there was a button. And every time, that it hit that button 2 times, it got a grain of food to eat. And the other pigeon also had a button, and it didn't know when it would get the food. In other words, sometimes it would hit it 5 times, suddenly it got a grain, and sometimes it had to press, 20 times, sometimes 30 times. It never knew, when it will get the grain of food. So these 2 are constantly the same way. One is continuing with that, and every time that, the pigeon hits the button 2 times, it gets the grain. And then the experiment went that they stopped giving the 2 pigeons their food. So the one that was used to get, every time that it touched with its beak the button to get food, in a very, very early stage, it gives up because it understands, no. But the other one is still hopeful. That maybe, okay, so it didn't succeed at 17, let's try 27. No, maybe it's 114, and it continues and continues. And I think I'm the second pigeon. In other words, I don't know. Maybe I'll make very bad films, and my 17th film will be okay. So I believe in working. I want to work and make films, good, bad. And I think that the pleasure of making a film, which was so beautifully described by Francois Truffaut, I think it's called La Belle Américaine, the film, the film about the sweetness of the crew working on the film. That sweetness that comes from the camaraderie of the people working on a film, of the crew and the actors and everything around it, that sweetness is the same when you make a terrible film or when you make a good film.
In fact, there was such an interesting experiment, exactly like the one you speak of, but they did this in small children. So this was an experiment which stayed over many years, like 25 years or something. When these kids were young, they offered them 2 cookies to eat right now, or if they waited for a period of time, I'm not sure whether it was 1 week or 2 weeks, at the end of that time period, they would get 20 if they just didn't eat now. The strange thing was that most kids wanted that instant gratification. They ate the 2 cookies right away. There were few that said, I'll wait. And at the end of whatever 1 or 2 weeks, they got the cookies. So they followed these kids for their entire lives and careers to see how they did and whether this idea of instant gratification, whether it made a difference in their following years. And it was interesting to note that all the kids who waited and did not take the 2 cookies but waited for the 20, all of those went on to do very, very well in life. And the kids who instantly wanted things, they really didn't do anything very remarkable or noteworthy.
Yeah. Of course, when I make a bad film, the gratitude is there of the making of the film. So there is also, I'm eating the cookies also now. Okay.
Yeah. So I guess these are the interesting facets because there's so much involved, especially when somebody takes on something as challenging as filmmaking, that you really have to prepare yourself. It's like becoming a warrior of sorts, that you don't get satisfied easily, you don't give up easily, and you play for the long haul.
Right.
So one thing that interests me is how do you keep reinventing yourself? Because it's easy that if one thing works, to just stay in a comfort zone.
Yeah.
How do you embrace challenges and the insecurity of just being open to reinventing yourself?
I think that obviously when people see my films, they say, oh, it's a Dan Wolman film. So there is probably, but I feel that, there is something in me where, like, sometimes it's a story that I hear somebody telling, sometimes I read a short story, I see and look an opera, like I made a film in China, and I saw a lot of Chinese operas, and I found in one of them an idea that I can develop and do something in China with it. So I'm saying that I'm open to things, but all the time I'm saying, wow, that would make a great film, or that's a great story. I would like to, swallow it and then make it as a film, and through my prisms show how it would be. I can see it as working as a film. So there is not, I don't see it as a reinvention of something, but I'm saying that, again, think about me at my age and so on, that thirst to tell a story, like those stories that I told children when I was 15 and they were 10 years old, and there were these two blind children. I'm saying that thing of wanting to tell a story with everything, the effects, the music, the acting, obviously, and the humor, the whatever is there, that thirst is still there.
So Dan, you have had a lot of cultural influences on your personality. I would be very interested in knowing that perhaps your strongest roots are from Israel. So how do you contrast when you come to a country like India, which has these Eastern perspectives, or when you lived in the US, which was the Western world? What were the things that you felt were different or that stuck out to you?
Okay. First of all, my mother, at a very early age, my mother probably sensed something about me, and she would take me to museums. So, and I'm saying, when we were, as a young boy, we went to meet my grandparents, and they were living in Germany. We met them in Italy. So the museums were always something my mother would pull me. And I in my films, I also touch it, sometimes in a way of somebody who is not happy with the fact that somebody is forcing him to. But I think that in my films, art is very much a part of the films. Like even the film that I showed here now in Pune had a woman who is an artist. And also in my first film, The Dreamer, there is the young man is drawing So I'm saying it is like that. Now, I'm saying, think about India now. Obviously, I made a film now in India, and I would have not made it had I not been in India many times. I came to India the first time in 2003, and my film was in Ocean Film Festival in Delhi. And I'm saying, since then, I come very often to India. There is something about India that I feel very much comfortable with, and something about the people here and the culture, of course. So I read the newspaper, I'm speaking to people, I'm very familiar with the ideas, and I feel that I'm a man of the world. I don't feel like somebody who is looking at India from the outside. And the same thing when I go, when I was in America or was in Italy, I don't feel that I'm from there. I'm saying these are the same problems that we have, which is, on the one hand, great spiritualism culture, and at the same time, abuse, corruption, and things that you find in every country. I'm very much aware of the fact that I don't know many things, and I'm not that familiar with Indian. If you ask me about details and so on, about detail, culture, etc., I don't know. I know very general things, but there is so much literature, so much. Just to watch films today, where they made like. Here in Indian cinema, there are so interesting films made here independently, not Bollywood. Films that never see the light of day, and not many eyes will look at them, unfortunately. So, but I'm saying you're limited, and you also have the energy to think about your next film. So many times people come and say to me, Dan, you have to read my book, it'll make a great film, and so on. And I have a heap of books that I'm telling them, listen, I don't know if I can read it in the near future. And every time I go to a film festival, like now, people used to give me DVDs. You must see my film, or they send me links. Now, when I go home now, I've neglected so many things at home with my family, etc., that I don't have time to look at the films that nice people here gave me, or the books, to read the books that people gave me. So I'm saying I'm always feeling that the important thing is my films. In other words, if I want not to fall down and be nice to everybody. And I think that there is something about that. Okay, this is not the subject, but in working in film, that because you are like a commander of a certain unit, and you have sometimes you have to choose and neglect certain aspects, and like many actors come, was I okay, please, can we do another take, and so on. I'm saying no, I'm dealing only with the people that I thought were not okay, so please, okay. And sometimes I'm not nice to some people, and only just thinking about the future, otherwise it would not be done. I know I'm not answering your question, but I think it's interesting.
Yeah, no, that's what actually we're looking for, which are perspectives. In what shape and make a person, capable of doing what they do. One thing that would, I think, be of particular interest to aspiring filmmakers, young people, is you talk about making low-budget movies, and which is what almost every new person would be in that position, because it's so easy, when you have somebody who comes with high budgets, you have a producer of that kind. When you're working with low budgets, what are the main things you need to figure out that can sustain you till the end to ensure that you actually got it done? Because I think many people are scared at so many different levels. Mm-hmm. So if you had to help chart out, what would you say are the most important points?
Look, I think I'm thinking about a young woman who wants to become a film directress or make films, a young man, and I'm saying that, first of all, I am trying to give somebody strength. I'm saying the first thing is your independence, that you'll be independent. Sometimes, you give the power away when there is a producer who breathes down your neck and says, listen, you have to take this actress because last night da-da-da happened, something like that. Mm-hmm. So I'm saying, first of all, to continue working, it's important. And that thing, of the independence. And then also, when I say independence, meaning not relying on many people, trying to take, the film in your hands. So I'm usually telling people are saying, I don't know how to produce, I'm looking for a producer. I said, why don't you produce yourself? It's so simple to produce. And now I'm going to give a few tips, which I'm giving, people. I found, again, if I want that sometimes when I don't have a budget, and every 2-3 years I come out with a film, sometimes the only way to do it is, when I have very little money, I decide to shoot sporadically. Okay, in other words, I don't shoot 24, 30 days in one lump. Because so I'm shooting it, 2 days every month. So we know 2 weeks from now, I'm shooting a day. I'm telling all my friends. Then I don't need an assistant cameraman. I'm going to be assistant director. No, assistant cameraman I need. But assistant director I don't need. Normally, I become myself my assistant director. And sometimes the person who is in charge for me about the makeup is also in charge of clothes. And so I have a very small crew. And I'm answering your question that you asked, I think, before about the relationship of people, of how do I approach people.
That's another one.
Yeah.
But this one was about just sheer budgeting, that in a low budget, what are the steps? So I appreciated that you said that cut down the costs wherever they can be cut. And then the idea of just plan so well that, don't try to do everything in one stretch where you would need a huge budget. Like break it into 2 days a week.
But what I'm saying is normally when they shoot a film, they shoot 25, 30 days, 40 days.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, no, I'm not going to rush, okay? In Hollywood, they say in order to make a film, it takes 7 years, okay? But mine, I'm saying, if I shoot 2 days every month, it means I shoot 24 days during the year. It's already enough to shoot a feature. What are the advantage of it? You edit as you go along, okay? Like you shoot, okay? I shot 4 days. After 2 months, I look at the material. I don't like this actress. Say, okay, let's kill her. Let's take somebody else. I say, wow, the woman is wonderful. That thing. Let's improve her part. So I'm saying it's much more flexible this way, and it is inexpensive in a sense that if I don't have money suddenly for 3 months because I have a dentist problem or whatever it is, I'm telling the actors, listen, you have to bear with me. It will take time. And you write a script. Now, also, the first thing that I should have spoken about is how you write a script, how you choose a story. You choose a story that you're writing to your limitations. You say, I don't have a big budget, so I'm going to write a story like a film that we did previously with my co-producer, Amir Gedalia. I made a film which was called Judas. And it takes place in one house. It's a story of a man who gets a free room, a young man who gets a free room in a house, but he's in charge of an old man. He has to talk to him every day for 2 hours because the woman in charge of this old man is afraid that he will become, senile, that he will lose it. And so the film is about these conversations. So I knew immediately when I read the book that, it's a story which fits me. It's all shot in one house. I can shoot 2-3 days. I can stop. I can come back. And so I'm saying writing for your limitations, shooting sporadically, and also, with the actors, all kinds of arrangements could be made where you'll tell them you'll be a part of it, etc.
So Dan, how do you navigate relationships? Because when you go to convince filmmakers to give money to kind of produce a film, or when you get work from actors, what's your approach? How do you convince people to trust you and to work with the vision that you have?
Okay. I think that I have a problem that I'm not a businessman in the sense that, the people who have a dream and say this will make a lot of money. So for me to come and meet somebody asking for money and tell him, listen, my film is going to be a great success, it's going to be commercial, I cannot say that. I have a problem. So I will say, listen, I think it has a good chance, but, in other words, it's very difficult for me to brag about myself. And definitely, like from the first film that I made, I always was sure that the whole world is going to see my film. And then I was surprised that only, tens of thousands have seen it, or before it was presented on television. So I'm saying that there is something in me which is always, I'm very honest to my investors. And I think my attitude, I'm speaking about the people that I'm working with. It's something that happened quite soon, that I'm speaking about my personal films, that the people working for me I'm a bit crazy, and they know I'm crazy. I have an idea, and that it's going to be some sort of a voyage working with me, but they are my groupies. I have to have people who believe in me and believe that I'm trying to do something which is good. So I'm saying, compared to my other films, let's say I worked for Israeli television, or I worked for very famous producers. I made a film in Italy and other films. And there, like you come to a place, you don't know anybody, and you're just a director. And the relationship is a very cold thing. Okay, he's the director, and he gives us on. And there isn't that personal, friendly thing that I have in my small films. In my small films, it's a team together, and I need that. Otherwise, again, a small remark by somebody could suddenly, even a cameraman could say something to me that would, make me, think twice. And I give this example. Sometimes a cameraman comes and says, "Dan, come shoot from here. It's a great shot," and so on. I know I never shoot from there, because there is a place for the director. The director says where to shoot from. And I think if a cameraman is speaking to me, I say to him, "Listen, take me to the side, wait until I've said, okay, what I have to say, and then say, Dan, maybe it would be a good idea to shoot from there," and say it. And after I know the cameraman, it'll be much easier for me, rather than a new cameraman who sometimes is very pushy. So I'm just saying that probably, I'm kind of a very self-centered, and I have to be surrounded by people who believe in me. And and I'm saying that in relationship to the other investors and people that I don't know, it's always something which is sometimes doesn't make a good fundraiser.
Yeah.
Because
has that been a challenge? That if you had a more outgoing kind of a boasting type of personality, do you feel that would have helped?
Yes. Yes. I think so. I think that if somebody comes and says, "Listen, I'm telling you, it's going to make millions. We have this famous actress. We have this guy," and so on. Sell the idea. And I think sometimes it's again, ideally, one finds a good producer who believes in the director, and there's a great collaboration. Each one has his job. Now, because I was a bit hurt in my first film, I decided that I cannot trust anybody, and I have to be my own producer. And that's why when I tell some people, listen, believe in yourself, you can do it. Because, I would recommend to somebody never to create a partnership with a producer. He says, okay, we created a partnership. I prefer, somebody says to me, "How do you know how to produce?" I'm taking a production manager, I'm paying him a salary, and then if he does something wrong, I can fire him. If you have a partnership and then you have to break down a company and so on, it's so painful, and you get stuck. So I am for independence.
And I really like that idea somewhere where you said that I'm a gun.
Yeah.
I found that very interesting. Can you describe what you meant when you said that you're a gun? When it comes to your personal life,
yes,
what really matters to you? How do you build relationships in your personal life?
Very difficult question. No, because it's very personal. And I'm very lucky because I think that I got married at the age of 36, and I have the most unbelievable, fantastic wife. And I think getting married to a person like me is the hardest thing to do. I think it's not easy to be married to me, that there is something which is very much, I'm stuck in myself, and I have all this, I don't know how to say, a dark side in me. Maybe it's light, but some people see it as dark. So I'm saying I'm very lucky, that I have children, grandchildren, and I have many friends. So I'm saying that, it is, I'm very lucky as far as that goes.
Do you feel that artists are lonely or that they are loners? That they prefer silence
Yeah.
when they're not working?
Yeah. Again, it's a big generalization because artists are so different from one another. And, I find that, that even when surrounded by, people and the people that you love, you're still alone. And
So, which means
yes.
an artist is kind of more inward, is always,
Yeah.
even if they're with people, they have their own inner dialogue.
You know, how do you say? I've not been inside someone else who is not an artist to say what he feels, but I'm saying that, obviously there is something about that. And I think also it goes back to childhood and so on, where you feel that you are different.
You've lived a long, fruitful life, and you have seen the time before technology, and especially now AI. So you've seen the era when there were no cell phones, no computers, no technology, and certainly no AI. What do you feel are the changes from the times then and to what we are currently? What are the significant differences that you've observed?
Look, regarding AI, I think that, first of all, a lot of people are going to lose their jobs because of AI. And I'm saying, on the one hand, it's fantastic and it's helpful, but at the same time, it's now you cannot tell if somebody is really talented or not. Because sometimes, you see a painting, you read a book, you see a film, and sometimes, or a screenplay. Now we have to compete. We have foundations that give money based on your screenplay. And if somebody is using AI and he asks AI, please write for me a Bergman Pasolini screenplay, and I'm writing my little screenplay, sometimes he might be getting the money and it's not him. It's the machine or it's the AI who did it. So I'm saying there is something very disturbing about this as far as a lot of people are going to, you can cheat with AI. I'm sure AI is used to rob people. And so I'm saying there is something like, an Israeli guy I saw who was supposed to shoot a commercial in another country, in Romania. And, it's something that, I've read. And he said, listen, I was supposed to go to Romania, shoot a commercial, and it would have cost me a lot of money. And I used AI, and here is the thing. It's fantastic. It's a great commercial. But I'm saying, think about his life and what did he get from it? He was sitting in front of a screen. Otherwise, he would have gone to another country. He would have been in Romania. The people, the airlines would have gotten the money for his ticket there. Actors in that place, technicians in that place would have made money on it, okay? And now AI did the thing. But I'm saying the next time, AI will not use him as a director. AI will direct it and he won't have a job. So I'm saying there is something very disturbing about AI. But basically, it happened with other inventions in previous years. There were other inventions that people said, wow, it's going to change everything. And that happened also when photography started, and people say, "Oh my God, painters will not have any jobs anymore because they're going to be." And it happened later on with the computer, whatever it was, transistor, etc. And so I'm saying I have a feeling there's going to be some changes. Some people are going to suffer, and so on. And I hope that mankind will know how to curb this robot or this monster. What could become a monster and probably destroy.
I think that also because AI was never meant to take over. It was meant to assist. But because people now are stopping thinking. I mean, they feel that there's no need to think. Let's take the easy way out. Let's get this email written. Let's get the script written. Let's just ask for ideas. And while they are helpful, it's always important to stay connected with one's actual intention and what do they want from something. If they completely give their powers to AI, then as you're saying, it looks like it could be a complete a complete surrender of our own humanity. If we don't connect with our creativity, with the reason that we wish to make things, do things, it's to have our own voice. And if AI takes over our voice, then we've lost the battle right there. Although it might seem that things got done easily, but if we've left and lost our authentic voice, how have we won? We haven't won this then.
Yes.
So, Dan, it's been so, so wonderful speaking with you, and very, very interesting and enlightening. What are you looking at as we conclude? What are the new things on your avenue now?
I'm still in like a student, still looking things, and I have a project which I'd like to do. Again, has to do with India, and it's a story, an interesting story, but it's a story about a young woman who came from India to support her family, and she's a caretaker of a young 35-year-old Indian woman who is working in Tel Aviv, taking care of an 85-year-old lady. And it's a story of a young Israeli boy, 12-year-old boy, whose father left for India. And suddenly it's about a friendship that develops between the boy. And then we find out that something is completely wrong, and the boy was lied to. His father's not in India at all. But then the boy ends up in India in my story. It becomes like an adventure story. And there is a tragic aspect to it also. So now I finished this film, and I'm, again, we'll probably try to look for a producer, somebody to help me support it, because it's not an easy film. 80% of it has to be shot in Israel, 20% here. But I'm saying it's exciting, and this is one project, and I'm working on documentaries all the time. Things are happening around me. I find something interesting. I go with the camera. I have a small camera myself, and I start doing little things. I have a lot of unfinished films that I'm, working on. For example, there is I met an elderly couple, and they're Holocaust survivors, and he was with Schindler, Schindler from Schindler's List. Yeah, and so this woman lived when she was 7-year-old. They had nothing to eat. She, when I interviewed her, she tells a story that they would wait. Hungry children would wait by a restaurant where rich people were eating, and at the end, somebody would tell her that she can lick the plate, something like that. So I'm saying, immediately when I heard their stories, I started documenting. I came for 7 days maybe, every 2 weeks I come, I say, how are you? And I'm coming, and she tells me stories, or she says, I'm going to visit my daughter or whatever. And I photograph, and I'm collecting something which I hope will become a documentary. So my world is all the time with this. And a part of my world is film festivals. You work very hard, 3-4 years on a film, and then you come to a film festival, like here in Pune, which is, really nice, because, you find a lot of other filmmakers. It's a celebration where you see new films, and it's very exciting to be here.
Thank you so much, Dan, for this
Thank you.
lovely conversation, and wishing you the very, very best in all your future endeavors.
I thank you for allowing me to tell my little stories. Really, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.